when we stand on equal ground, I respect you for who you are, you respect me for who I am, regardless of our differences.
Welcome to On Equal Ground. My name is Aaron Green, and this is my co-host, Kwame Hanna. Now that we're done with all the pomp and seriousness of the law, right? We wanted to have a more relaxed conversation about what human rights means, but we felt it was important to clearly and succinctly express the principles being reflected in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the relevance of the law connected to those rights, right? So I'm going to ask Kwame, what do human rights mean to you?
Well, having a grasp or understanding of human rights, what it means to me is that you protect yourself from getting treated foully or treated without respect. You know what I mean? It empowers you. It makes you respect who you are, and it gives you a sort of inner strength. I mean, there's sometimes sometimes you need things to help you gain an understanding of yourself and what are your rights and how society should react to you and treat you and respect you and all these things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me there are 1,000 ways that I approach what are human rights and like what do they mean to me, right? And the first one is always a line from Damian Marley's, one of Damian Marley's songs on Jamrock, right? He says, people will always do what they want, and that's what really makes the world go round. And I think that's the human rights principles reflected in a spiritual perspective, right? That no matter what you think your God thinks, right? People will always do what they want, and that is the energy, right? The free will is the energy that makes the world go round. And then I think of human rights from sort of a community perspective, right? Like the idea that we are all a part of a community, and human rights are the rules or the rules of the community, or like not even rules. Human rights are the explanation of how the body called the community works. And so just like with your body, that you can't survive for very long after 3 days without any water. You have to drink water regularly. That's a basic need of the human body, and I think a basic need of the human community is respect of each other and each other's boundaries, right? Like, you need to respect your own boundaries, and you need to understand other people's boundaries, right? So that you will understand where your boundaries meet and where conflict is possible, right? So we could avoid it.
And it's like how I like to say that, like when your opinion's in the majority, that doesn't mean you have to treat someone whose opinion that's in the minority or a less position in a certain way because y'all have a certain values to your religion. You still have to respect people to a certain extent, because as we watch through history, you've seen when the Jews were the majority, how they treated Christians, and like in turn, when the Christians were the majority, how they treat
The Jews.
Jews. I mean, so it's like it's a revolving cycle. It's a battle for respect, and it's a battle to be. To me, sometimes it's silly because regardless of your belief, that doesn't give you the right to disrespect or spit on me because I don't believe what you believe.
Absolutely. And it's really important, not just spiritually, right? But if we have differing opinions, and just because my opinion is in the minority, it doesn't mean that you get to degrade me or ridicule me, right? Even if my idea is absolutely stupid, like even if I believe that the source of wisdom and that the God is a unicorn, right? And that the unicorn, when the unicorn passes flatulence, that's how people are born, right? Like even if I believe something that's really zany and out there, you don't have the right to ridicule me in a way that makes my life less safe or makes me unable to enjoy, right, participating in a community. You don't have the right to shun me or make me a pariah.
Right.
You know, once my idea is not hurting people, right?
Because we got to come to understand that this is our world. We gotta learn to share it. Basically,
Absolutely.
We're in a space where we have to interact with each other, and it's still the benefit of humanity for us to work together and not keep going at each other. You know what I mean?
And it's an important discussion because it is a difficult, arduous, and time-consuming, a lengthy journey that we're on, because we have to acknowledge that we're starting from a place where initially we believed that all beings were the creation of God and the property of this higher being, right, of God, and He set out the rules, and that the priests are the police, and they're to police you to make sure you're following the rules. And then you know that the punishment for breaking the rules is hell. And then we move into medieval times where, right, so those are like biblical times. We move into medieval times. We talk about circa AD and BC. But when we move into medieval times, we have the idea that the king is a direct representative or representation of God on the planet, and that the king is in charge of the people. The people actually belong to him, and so you're the property of the state. And so then we move into, for African people, we move into slavery, right? And so for African people, you didn't even have the sense of ownership well, now I say that, here's what I mean. What I mean is that we've been taught that slaves were just slaves, right? What we've been taught is that they were mindless animals anyway. So it's not like we took anything away from them. In fact, what we've been taught is that this process of slavery and colonization gave to the African, right? We gave the African civilization, we gave them education, we gave them spirituality, but the truth is they had these things all along, right? They were made slaves. They weren't born slaves. But in this period of slavery, the state attempted to take away the rights of these people and suggested them that they have no rights, that first of all, that they're the property of God. And God has determined or decided that you will be the property of this white man or this European man, right? And that is how your life should be lived out. And that's how they use the Bible to perpetuate that paradigm, that belief system. And so we move now to 2016, and this is not the easiest conversation to have.
Because from my experience, white people want like to just push it under the rug, and I have white friends, and I don't, you know what I mean. So, but they like to push the issue under the rug. But there's certain things that has happened that you can't push it under the rug because there's certain disadvantages in the society, to whereas it hurt. I mean, like we're still limited in certain ways, and we're still being abused in certain ways, and it's something that simply can't continue. I mean, it's like we got to come to a point where we able to see that you black, you white, there's good black people, there's good white people, there's bad white people, there's bad white people, there's bad Chinese, there's good Chinese. You know what I mean? If we could come to that level of comprehension and understanding, that's what I feel human rights, it gives each of us that understanding and puts us on equal ground.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for many of the rights or the principles that are being articulated in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, when we look at the existence of the African in contemporary society, I think until the past has been acknowledged, and I don't mean like, okay, you know what, Europeans actually acknowledged that slavery happened, even though in some states in the US, as we speak, they are creating and authorizing textbooks that suggest that slave masters treated their slaves like family members, right? That it was all hunky-dory, it was a beautiful experience for slaves, but that until it is the damage that was caused is acknowledged. And I think more importantly, that the system that allowed slavery to happen still exists. And that those that are disadvantaged are still being enslaved by it, right? And so then we get into issues of economic rights, the right to work and join trade unions so that you can negotiate for a better economic compensation, right? And social compensation. But the reparations discussion is fundamentally a human rights discussion, you know? And so we know though that in 2016, both black and white people are not prepared to have that conversation. Not all of us, right? And so this conversation hopefully will make it easier for us to have the even more difficult conversations, right? That will lead us to creating a world where we can acknowledge that people are people first.
Yeah.
And then they become they become a product of the constructs of the culture and society that they, live in.
Yeah. That is the nature nurture the bee.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.